Hello friends, I am sharing with you another dinners video. This one is a little bit different. Usually I have recipes to link down below, but for this one, there's no recipes involved. So if you want to follow along, have a little pen and paper or have your phone and take notes if you wanted to recreate some of them. But I think the one thing that I want to try and do with sharing certain videos on my channel too is to get some people a little bit more comfortable in the kitchen. Everybody has different degrees of, how they cook. Some people, everything is follow it by the recipe. Some people just take a bunch of stuff, throw it in, reheat some stuff, cook some stuff from scratch. And then there's people that just cook because they have to. It's not something that they enjoy. And I think what I'm trying to do is just make you feel not so scared to kind of experiment in the kitchen. And honestly, some of the best meals that I have made over the years are ones that I just kind of created on my own, put a little bit of this in, put a little bit of that in, kind of used a couple of recipes that I have, made over the years, but kind of make them my own. And this is exactly what I'm going to be sharing with you in this dinners video. So I hope that you enjoy. Off with making just a simple tomato sauce, kind of a marinara sauce. This is something that I got from a cookbook years and years ago, and it was one of those cookbooks where I only made this one recipe, and I ripped out the page and I got rid of the cookbook. And honestly, I just kind of created my own sauce. So I like to take some olive oil, chop up some onion, cook that down a little bit, kind of bring out the sweetness of the onions. And then I'm going to be adding in this can of Elmer Accents. It's petite tomatoes with garlic and olive oil, a 14.5 can of just crushed tomatoes, and then a little bit of tomato paste. So once my onions have cooked down a little bit, I'm just going to go ahead and add the tomato products, a little bit of the tomato paste. You can always start off with a little bit, and if you need more, add it later. I do find tomato paste gives a lot of flavor, and it also helps to thicken up the sauce a little bit. This is what I've found over the years. So just a very simple little tomato sauce. I'm also going to put 2 teaspoons of sugar in there just because there's kind of 3 cans of tomatoes. I definitely could have went with just the one just because the sweetness had been brought out in the onions too. So I think I'm just going to keep it pretty simple. I'm going to put a little bit of salt, and I'm going to put a little bit of pepper in here. And then I don't want to use like an Italian seasoning. I just want to use some of the ones that I really like. So I'm going to add a little bit of basil. Parsley, I don't find when you use the dried one, it adds a lot of flavor, but I really like the little bits of green. I find it makes it look a little bit prettier. And then I love to add lots of oregano. So I'm just going to add in those spices, bring it to a boil, put the lid on, and then let it simmer probably for about 15 to 20 minutes. I made this a little bit earlier in the day, so I'm just taking the lid off. It has come to a boil. It's all over the place, but I'm using my cast iron Dutch oven, and I find that this keeps the heat really well. So all I'm going to do is turn off my stove, put the lid back on, and just kind of let it sit until I'm ready to make the next part of the chicken Parmesan. So I have 4 chicken breasts out, and I'm just going to go ahead and kind of pound them out a little bit just to make them a little bit thinner. I find the one part of the chicken breast is so thick. I'm just using some parchment paper, and I can just put this in the compost, no waste to it. But I definitely think of buying like the chicken cutlets. It's a little bit pricier, but I do find it's more even and a lot better for whenever I make chicken parm. So anyways, I'm just going to keep pounding these out, taking out my frustrations. And this is a little mallet. I think I bought it at Winners. It was $7 or $8, but you can even use a glass or a rolling pin if you don't have one of these. So my chicken is all pounded down. I have some flour, a couple of eggs, and then I have some Italian breadcrumbs. I'm going to add a little bit more of just Parmesan cheese to it. And this is something I don't normally do. I usually just, roll it in the egg and then do it in some breadcrumbs. And this time I decided to try the whole flour, egg, and breadcrumb mixture. I was seeing some videos on Instagram or TikTok, and that's really kind of where I got a craving for chicken Parmesan. It's been a while since I've had it. So I don't normally do this, but honestly, if I was going to do this again, I actually picked it up. I was at the store one day and I saw that they had shake and bake, the Italian one. And I'm like, you know what? That's all I need for chicken Parmesan, because all I have to do is put the chicken into the bag, into whatever bowl I'm going to use, put the shake and bake on it, and then bake it. I really felt like this was a really messy step. And honestly, for me, the chicken parm is all about the tomato sauce. At least that's my personal opinion on it. So anyways, I have the chicken all breaded and ready to go. So I have some olive oil in my frying pan. And honestly, I didn't really care for this. I found it kind of gave like an oily flavor to the chicken. I'm not one for frying things like this, and I really like my chicken to kind of bake and absorb some of the flavor from the sauce. So anyways, I am going to put them into the oven to cook them all the way through, and I like to actually use chicken Parmesan on the chicken. I know some people will use like mozzarella or a different type of cheese, but I do have some Parmesan Reggiano. It's something I always like to have in my refrigerator. So instead of using a small grater, I'm just going to go ahead and use this large one and go ahead and get this prepped and ready to go. So as my chicken is cooking, my tomato sauce is warming up again. This is all ready to go. So the chicken is cooked all the way through. I have the pasta going, and then all I'm going to do is put the 4 chicken breasts in here. Just kind of let it sit in with the sauce that it's heated up. My sauce is turned off now. I'm just going to go ahead and sprinkle the Parmesan cheese on top, and then I'm going to put the lid on top and let the magic happen. Here is the finished product. The tomato sauce was absolutely amazing. I enjoyed it so much. The chicken wasn't my favorite. I'm not a lover of frying it, but this was something I had not made in so long, and it tasted absolutely amazing. Next dinner, I got 3 sweet potatoes. I'm just going to cut the ends off, peel them up, and cut them into fries. I'm just going to go ahead and do some simple spices on here. So I put a little bit of olive oil. I like to put a little bit of salt and pepper on here, and also a little bit of garlic powder. You can do this in the air fryer, you can do this in the oven, but tonight I'm doing it in the oven. I just have my oven preheated to about 370, and I'm just going to put them all on the pan with a piece of parchment paper. I love using parchment paper because I find it's a really easy cleanup, and I can also compost it. So I'm just going to spread these out into a single layer. I'm going to put them into the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then I'm going to put the heat up to 425 degrees. I am making turkey burgers tonight. I made this, I think, in December, and I used a box of stovetop, but I found the crumbs were too big, so I'm just going to put them in my little Ninja mixer and just ground them up, kind of like for the breadcrumbs. But I find with the flavor of the stovetop, it kind of gives you that feeling of like a turkey dinner with the ground turkey, and then you have like all of the seasonings and spices and herbs and all of that go into like your dressing or your stuffing. So I have a pound of ground turkey. I'm just going to add 1 egg in here, and then I added the entire package of the stovetop. Honestly, I felt like I could definitely get away with only half of it, just because ground turkey is a little bit dry and the flavors can be a little bit too much. So I think if I would do it again, I would maybe add half of it or add another egg or maybe a little bit of milk, because it was a little bit dry, but the flavor was definitely there. So I'm just using a spoon. This is a spoon my mom got at the thrift store years and years and years ago, but there's something about always having like a nice like sturdy spoon to mix everything up. And I just made it into 4 patties. I have a little bit of olive oil in here, and then all I have to do is fry them. This is going to be a pretty quick and easy dinner. The entire family's going to eat it, and that's one of the things I like. I buy these brioche buns at Costco. I love that you can get them in the 4-pack. I get them at Walmart too. There's my supervisor. So I'm only going to need 3 for dinner, and then I have 1 left over. So I'm just going to go ahead and put these in the oven. I opened up a can of cranberries, mayo, and then I have Swiss cheese to kind of give it that full like kind of turkey dinner flavor to it. So anyways, my burgers need to be flipped over. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I want to make sure that there's a nice crunch on the other side, and these are looking pretty good. So pretty simple. You know, you could even do these in the oven if you want, but I like to do them in my frying pan. So anyways, I just put the buns in at the bottom and they toasted perfectly. I put up the heat a little bit on the sweet potato fries. It kind of, you know, just make sure that they're cooked all of the way through. So just moving them around. Don't need to do too much. So this is one of the things that I like to do. So my pan is very, very hot. I just put a little bit of water on it. And then I find it kind of steams the burgers. It gets all of those little bits of flavor on the bottom, and then it kind of makes them, you know, just a little bit not as dry as if I wouldn't have done it. And then I'm just going to go ahead and put the cheese slices on 3 of them. And then I'm just going to kind of plate everything up. Hunter is still supervising. These are white plates that I thrifted. I love to use these for soup and sandwiches or burgers and fries and all of that. And that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to kind of assemble. I'm going to put some mayo on here and then also the cranberries, and then just put the patties on here. I like to cut the burgers in half, and it's just really quick and easy. It's one of those things that I kind of came up with one night where I was kind of craving like turkey dinner. We love cranberries, so you have like the turkey, you have the stuffing, you have the cranberries, and then you have the sweet potatoes. You could also do French fries on the side or something else, or even like a soup on the side if you wanted to. But this is what I decided to do for homemade turkey burgers. Very simple presentation, isn't crazy. The sweet potatoes aren't crispy, but you can pick them up and eat them. I cannot get them crispy. I've tried using the cornstarch. I don't like it. I cut the burgers in half. You don't need a lot to add in here because the flavor of the burger is really good. And then you have that little bit of cranberry. It was delicious. Now, this is a dinner I made a couple of weeks ago, and it turned out absolutely amazing, and I wanted to recreate it. So I had a couple of mushrooms from a container last week that I didn't want to waste, so I just cut them in half. I have a couple of onions, and I'm just going to go ahead and slice them up. And I also have some beef out. So I'm kind of doing like a beef stew, but I'm not making the traditional one. This is something that I just kind of wanted one night. I was going to make like ramen with the beef stew, and it just wasn't something I wanted. It was a really cold winter day, and I just wanted to kind of have like mashed potatoes. So I do have stew beef. I've never heard of beef tips until I've like watched some other YouTube creators. So I don't know if there's a difference with beef tips and stew beef. I did look it up, but I've never heard of beef tips in Canada. But I do find stew beef is very, very tough. And I'm going to cook this all in the oven. I have it preheated to 300 degrees. I put my button mushrooms in here, and I'm just going to let the flavors kind of work their way in. I want the beef to cook really nice and slow so it's tender. I'm not going to season the beef. I'm not going to brown it first. I know some people have mentioned that before. I'm just going to keep it really simple. I'm just going to put a little bit of pepper in here, and then a little bit of salt too. And then I made my big boo-boo. The last time I made this, I only used half a carton of beef broth. And this time I had a lot more in my pot. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and use the entire box of beef broth. And it was just a little bit too much. So anyways, I'm just kind of putting everything in, making sure the beef is down in the juice. And 300 degrees, I'm going to do this for about 2 hours. Just kind of let the oven do all of the work. I love doing it in my Dutch oven. I have my potatoes ready to go. My beans are ready to go. And I just like to keep it really simple. I'm going to boil all of that. And then I took out my beef and it's all cooked down. I love the button mushrooms. There's a lot of liquid. And I should have kept some of it out because I wanted to use a gravy packet. That's what I did last time, and it was really, really good. So anyways, I decided to take some of the broth out and then add my gravy mix to it because I did that last time. I put the gravy mix into the broth and then it kind of like got all lumpy. So anyways, I had this out and it was cooling down a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and add my gravy mix to this and then work its way in. Now, unfortunately, I just had too much liquid with this. So I decided to add another package of the gravy mix. I probably should have just done like a cornstarch and flour mixture to kind of thick it up a little bit. But I was kind of scared about losing some of the beef flavor. And As you can see, there's just way, way, way too much. So I'm just gonna kind of work with what I have. My mashed potatoes are ready to go, and my green beans. I just like to add a little bit of the Montreal steak spice in here. And then I'm just gonna get this all plated up. It did thicken up a little bit more, but I definitely would have liked it a little bit thicker, but the flavor is gonna be there, and that's okay. Like, everything doesn't always have to be perfect. This dinner here is definitely about comfort and flavor and just kind of simplicity. So anyways, there was lots of gravy. Could have used a bun or something with this, but it was delicious. It's not the prettiest looking meal that you've ever made, but it was perfect for a very, very cold winter day. It was a comfort meal. I used up what I had, and it was definitely delicious. And I also took some of the beef and froze it for another night. They were really, really good. The chicken Parmesan, I would definitely, like I said, do like a shake and bake or something different. I didn't like the chicken fried in the oil. I just don't like the flavor of that. And I love the homemade tomato sauce. That is something I definitely want to recreate. Maybe, you know, do it in a food prep and just have it throughout the week. I think it'd make a really nice pizza sauce too. And the turkey burgers, I think I could have got away with the half a package stovetop, but it was really, really good. It's just something that's different. Everybody really enjoyed it. And it's a quick dinner that you can throw together. The last one I was a little bit disappointed about because when I made it before, of course I didn't film it and it was absolutely perfect. This one, I just used a little bit too much broth. So if you're going to do something like that, always go with less broth because it's easier to add more. It's always harder to kind of take it away. So that is one of my tips. So anyways, friends, I hope that you enjoyed this no recipes dinner video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and maybe I will make more of these in the future, because that's one of the things I love to do, is just kind of get in the kitchen and cook. And I think when you cook from the heart and you cook when you're kind of craving something, sometimes you can come up with some of the best dinners that you've ever made. So sometimes if you are doing that, write things down so you know what you are doing, so you are able to recreate them again. So thanks for watching, everybody. Have an absolutely amazing day, and I hope you're able to make something that you and your family enjoy for dinner tonight.